Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Filberto Aguirre Jr., Rex Thomas Allen, Ernest Allen Jr., John Gerald Almanza, Wendell Warren Anderson, William Anderson Jr., Larry Franklin Arnold, Norman Earl Baldwin, Stuart Lee Barnett, Dennis Gordon Batesel, Earl Sherman Bazemore, James Terry Beasley, Gitan Jean Guy Boudon, Theodore Frank Bedra, Louis Lamar Biggers, William John Bilbo Jr., Guy Andre Blanchette, John James Blanton, Kevin Earl Bonjour, John Bingham Booth, Daniel Allen Branshaw, Paul Edward Bridget, Don Charles Brown, Gardner John Brown, Robert George Bull II, Lawrence Randolph Bullen, Dwayne Lorenz Busselman, Dennis John Canedo, John Patrick Joseph Carey, Wayne Lewis Carlson, Stephen Douglas Carr, Ronald Eugene Chandler, George Anthony Chapman, Gary Lynn Clapp, Robert Wayne Clark, John Willie Cockerham Jr., Wesley Oteria Cody, Sam Gary Cordova, Dwight Clifford Coy Jr., Merlin Joseph Craig, Edward Bernard Cribb, John Curtin III, Richard Lawrence Daughtry, Richard Lloyd Davis, Edward Day, Ani David Duncan, Rim Michael Dungy, Daniel Lee Erlenbaugh, Jerry Wayne Eddy, Illinois Emery Jr., Curtis Esteridge, Henry Ray Expose, James Allen Ferguson, Florentino Flores, Richard Allen Fry, William Otis Fuller, Wilhelmon Gardner, Isaiah Calvin Garnett, Richard Edgar Genest, Donald Frederick Gibson, James Michael Ginn, Jules T. Gertanner, Lee O'Day Glancy III, William Anthony Gorvet,
Gary Gerald Gray, Charles Green Jr., Pedro Rosario Guerrero, Roger Thomas Guest, Kenneth Ray Gullett, Ellen Edward Guy, Benny Ray Halstead, Gary Lamont Harms, Rodney Cecil Harsh, George Edward Henry, John Donovan Harrington, Norman Ralph Hetzel, Thomas Stephen Hickman, John Paul Hoffman, William Glenn Howell, Dale Martin Houston, Charles E. Hutchins Jr., Guy Marcel Inkel, Larry Bruce Jacobson, Elbert Lee Johnson, John William Joyce, Kenneth Michael Kardash, Curtis Charles Castler, Ronald Edward Keglovitz, Bruce Thomas Kennedy, Thomas Michael Kilcullen, Verlin Donald King, Jr., Carrie Michael Kish, Marvin David Kostrowski, Fred Chris Kramer, Richard Otis Krogh, William H. Lawrence, Jr., Francis Joseph LeBlanc, Donald Lee Lehue, Donald Allen Lewis, Thomas Reno Lind, Joseph Charles Lupo, Ralph William Manners, Curtis Johnson Manring, Ruben Martinez Zayas, Dennis Duane Matthews, Bruce Mayo McClellan, Hima Duncan McDougall, Jr., James Clark McGlasson, Robert Paul McMaster, Michael Owen Mellon, Michael Lynn Morgan, Robert J. Morris, Jimmy Tony Morris, Peter Patrick Murner, Jr., Wayne Musket, Donald Irwin Nelson, Ronald Glenn Noble, Dwight Preston O'Brien, Juan Ramon Perez Padin, John Lawrence Pearsall, Jr., Joseph John Pinto, Fred Omar Pratt, Carrie Paul Queen, James Daniel Rachel, Richard Paul Raymond, David Philip Reese, John William Reese, Jr., James Edward Reed,
William Francis Ryder, Craig Arthur Rich, Herman Richardson, Jr., Dale Ray Richter, Teodorito Rios Rosario, Ruben Rivera, Fernando A. Rivera, Jr., Dennis Truman Robbins, Marshall Eugene Robertson, Roger Edward Robichaud, David Earl Rose, Alfred Darnell Ruth, Lee Ernest Salters, Hector Montalvo Sandoval, Arthur Benjamin Scarborough, James Lee Shibby, James Robert Shipman, Michael Bernard Schumann, David Frederick Sleeper, Robert Joseph Smith, Charles Frank Smith, Robert Charles Smith, Richard Michael Sprout, Frankie Stanley, Donald Verl Stein, Russell Allen Taylor, James Alton Taylor, George Edward Teft, William David Thorpe, Michael Patrick Trollia, Glenn Ellsworth Truex, Robert James Twist, Rodolfo Valdez, Enrique Valdez, Clifton Floyd Vaughn, Billy Ray Venable, Robert Nicholas Vinek, Vernon Martin Wallace, Douglas Dewey Wallen, George Baden Waring, Philip Warren Weaver, Charles George Warheim, Charles Arthur Whalen, Charles F. Whitfield, Jr., John Eugene Wickham, John William Widows, Arthur Paul Williams, Kenneth Wayne Worthley, Vernon Lee Yarber, Joel Craig York, Daniel Webster York,